All right, Australia. Assalamu alaikum, Australia. What's happening, Australia? Go ahead.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, brother. Who is with
Walaikum
me?
salam. My name is
Alaikum.
my name is Tehwar. I'm calling from Australia. How are you?
Allah bless you. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, brother? I'm well.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I had a few questions.
Yeah.
Usually, these were suggested by people who couldn't put it through to you. Do you want me to start with some Sunni questions or something related to Shias regarding Imama, the belief in Imama?
It's up to you, brother.
Okay, I'll start with the Sunni questions. So the first question is about do all Sunni scholars revere Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or they were against Imam Hussein alayhi salam at some point in the history?
I've
Do you
never
know
come
any?
across. Never come across any Sunni scholar who 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 does not like Imam Hussein alayhi salam or who does not praise Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I have not come across
Okay.
anyone. Generally, all Sunni scholars, they show great
E-
amount of respect and love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, not only for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So this is
Even during the time of Bani Umayyah?
uh, now that's a different question. During the time of Bani Umayyah, those people who lived at that time, as you know, they didn't have any books. During the time of Bani Umayyah, during the year 61 when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, there were no books. And no books have come to us from that time. So there were people from Bani Umayyah, but like Ibn Marjana, Ubaidillah ibn Ziyad, Umar ibn Sa'ad, even Umar ibn Sa'ad, he killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam for dunya. He did not really kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam for the love for because he hated him. He did not want to go into war with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but Ibn Ziyad did not give him a choice. So there were few people from the clan of Bani Umayyah, but you cannot really call them scholars. Your questions with regard to scholars of narrators of hadith. So I do not recall any one of them that who despise Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or who have shown despise for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yes, Khawarij, you can say Khawarij did not like Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and they used to use bad words for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But generally, and these people are revered in Sunni scholarly circles because as very truthful people and very reliable narrators of hadith. But even them, even Khawarij, you do not see, although their belief and their position is that they despised Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, especially Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, but they have not narrated their hadith or their sayings and their statements denigrating Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I've not seen that. So even the worst Nasibis in like Ibn Taymiyyah and his like Ahmad ibn Hanbal were very, very anti-Shia. They do not express disdain for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or for Imam Hussein alayhi salam unless they're pressed, and that's very rare. If you really press them and you put them in a corner where they have to either choose Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or Abu Bakr and Umar, of course, then they will bring forth an argument that would indicate sort of negative characters in Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But that is rare. Generally, they show respect and reverence for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Yes, go ahead, please.
So that means there was a point in history where all the fabrications of Bani Umayyah, at least like in one of your lectures, you were saying they were fabricating a hadith in favor of ashab, Sahaba of Rasulullah
Yes.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and against Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So at some point there was a filtering process where they realized that these hadiths are false, but some of them actually didn't pass through the sieve and they stayed, like praise of Umar or Abu Bakr. And sometimes you will see an odd narration against Imam Ali alayhi salam in their books, but they have definitely cleared their books of all those fabrications. Do you think?
No. They have not cleared their books of fabrication. Their books are full of fabrication. There are two different things. Do they despise their narrators? Do they despise Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? I'm sure amongst their narrators there were people who, because they themselves mentioned that, like Ikrama is such a major narrator in Bukhari and Muslim and all their books. The Ikrama with this guy is a Khariji, and there are many other of their narrators. They're Khariji. So they have not narrated their words against Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. However, However, these people were very smart. And because the general body of Muslims, because of the teachings of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam propagated so much and so often and so consistently, he stressed the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the respect for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and following Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So during the year 40 or year 50 or year 60, still there were many Sahaba who had heard these things from the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they believed in, and these people were influential. And they told their tribes and their family members and their relatives and their friends the status of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So the status of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam as well respected individuals, that they deserve love and respect and reverence, and even to be followed after the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was well established. So these individuals did not dare to narrate something clearly that would go against these statements that I just made, that would decrease from that would show some kind of disdain for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. However, what they did, because it was not possible for them to narrate a hadith, for instance, against Imam Hussein alayhi salam or Hazrat Zahra salamullahi alayha, because it would be rejected, such a person, and people would not be accepted. What they did was falsify a hadith for the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Make a hadith, fabricate a hadith in praise of those people who usurped the position of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and who abused Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and namely Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and other Sahaba. So for each and every fadila and excellent attribute of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they narrated similar things for Sahaba. That was one tactic. The second tactic was that they attributed false hadith to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, to Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that they praised Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. So what has, at least that's what have reached us today. I'm sure at that time there were many false things circulating amongst Muslims. Lots of those things were rejected and they died through history. But what was recorded, what has reached us today, is these two things are very prominent. One is to all those fabrications, and they have themselves. They've clearly stated this in their books of history, that Muawiyah made a declaration that you have to, in all his various provinces, this was read out as an order, as a command from the Khalifa Muawiyah on all Islamic provinces and all Islamic cities, that for every excellent attribute, for every fadila of Ali alayhi salam and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, you have to make similar fadila for Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and other Sahaba. And whoever does this, he told his governors to write down their names and send them to me, so I give them rewards, and you also have to give them good positions, and you have to elevate their positions in your courts. So these ahadith have reached us because they are easier to narrate something about Abu Bakr and Umar, but something to diminish Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. For instance, although there are such hadiths and their books, but they're not too many. For instance, they say Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam made a proposal to Abu Jahl's daughter, or Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, nastajiru billah. I'm just giving you an example, although it's a very harsh example, that they attributed to him that he, nastajiru billah, drank. So they made, but these are very rare, very rare. Generally, what they do is to hide the fada'il of Amirul Mu'mineen, not narrate them. That's one. Or if a person narrates the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, criticize them as weak, as Rafidi, or as a person who was a fabricator, and then fabricate a hadith about the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That was their approach. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So next question is kind of a bundled up question. This is about the spiritual aspect of imama and also the political aspect of imama. The Sunnis, they accuse us saying, why did Imam Hassan alayhi salam relinquish his political authority that he already had? And also, if you say spiritual imama is very important, then why don't we find Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Medina preaching? Although we have a concept like an Imam al-Natiq and Imam al-Sakit, but for them to understand why were Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam were silent in the presence of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Ali alayhi salam, and then Imam Hassan alayhi salam giving up the political authority that he had, and then the later Imams not fighting for the political authority. So can justice be established without a political authority, or is it sufficient for people to have a spiritual Imam who can guide them to Jannah, and that's how they will be judged? So that was my question that Sunnis raise against us, saying, why did Imam Hassan al-Islam relinquish the authority? And is this the political
so
authority is
very evident from history. The question to the answer to that is very evident to history. That why the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Mecca, there were the Mecca was ruled by chiefs of Quraysh who were all mushrik, and they persecuted Muslims, and they killed Sumayya, the mother of one of his Sahaba, mother of Ammar. They killed her. They actually they persecuted her, and they killed her with. At the last, what they did was they stuck a blunt force something into a vagina, and that's how she died. That's how she died, very sadly. And then they killed his father also, and that's how the Sahaba of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam were persecuted in Mecca. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam never resorted to the sword against them. Never. It was not because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not the Imam, was not the righteous leader, or he did not deserve political leadership, or that he was not brave, but rather it was not prudent. It was to the harm of Muslims. If the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had resorted to violence and the sword in Mecca, he would have been killed, and all Muslims would have been killed. And today there would have been no mention of Islam in the world, and there would be no Muslims in the world. So the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not fight Quraysh in Mecca. When he came to Medina, imagine, when he came to Medina, there are few people are following him, and they are very weak against all the tribes, all the Arab tribes who are surrounding them. And these tribes, they did not believe in compassion. These tribes did not believe in any humanity, any morality, any. They were not soft-hearted against Muslims. So imagine if all these tribes in the first year of Hijrah, they had overpowered the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What would the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam have done? It is another thing that they were never able to overpower the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. But if they were able to conquer Medina and overpower Medina, would the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would allow them that they would militarily defeat the Muslims and enter Medina as triumphantly? Never, never. Because if all these tribes had gathered together in year 1 or year 2, and and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that we do not have enough power to stall their advance, and we will be defeated militarily, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have made peace with them. Because making peace with your enemy is better than being annihilated with your enemy. And that is exactly the position of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If Imam Hassan alayhi salam in Kufa, after the demise of his father, he did not have sufficient power to hold on into his caliphate, his political power, because all his generals of the army, they had deserted him, and chiefs of tribes have deserted him, and the generals of his army, they were bribed by Muawiyah, and they had made a pact that we will arrest Imam Hassan alayhi salam and hand him over to Muawiyah.
That's right.
If he had decided to fight Muawiyah, he would have been defeated, and Muawiyah would have massacred Imam Hassan alayhi salam and his family, Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family, and all the Shia everywhere in Iraq and everywhere else. Just as if Kuffar of Quraysh and all the other tribes if they were able to defeat the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina, what would have they done in Medina? They would have definitely massacred all the Muslims, and today there will be no Islam. So for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, it was very important to save innocent lives, because there was no point in fighting. When you are defeated, when you do not have enough power, if you do not have sufficient power, yes, through miracles you can. Through miracles you can. You pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah sends his angels to destroy the enemies. But that's not how the Imam alayhim salam, and now how the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have lived their life to solve their problems through miracles all the time. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam could have resorted to miracles in Mecca, and destroy all his enemies in Mecca in the first or second year of his prophethood. But he did not do that. So that is the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's the reason, because when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, in the last year of his life, at the year 40, when he was martyred, before his martyrdom, he was trying to gather his forces to wage another war, another fight, another battle against Muawiyah. After Siffin was settled through mediation, and it was a very confused and for many people it was a confusing situation what happened after Siffin. So another battle with Muawiyah was in order. But even at that time, Nahj al-Balagha's sermons and all history is Tabari and the rest are clearly in consensus that people had abandoned Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam. If Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam was not martyred by Ibn Muljim, we don't know what would have happened. It was better for him, perhaps, that he was martyred, because if he had lived, he would have seen the desertion and by people and dishonor and very bitter days while he was facing Muawiyah. Because, and his sermons are, and to that regard, in Nahj al-Balagha, are very clear that he mentions that people of Medina, people of Kufa, I order you to get out and fight, and nobody moves. Nobody comes and joins my camp. And these are not one or two sermons, these are many sermons in Nahj al-Balagha. And after Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam was martyred, then the situation worsened for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and more people deserted him. So politically it was impossible, militarily it was impossible for Imam Hassan alayhi salam to fight Muawiyah. So he had two choices. One was to face Muawiyah and be massacred. He would, along with all his Shia and all the people of Kufa. And the second choice was that he makes a pact with Muawiyah and saves the lives. And that's what he did. He made a pact with Muawiyah that Muawiyah will not curse Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He will not kill the Shia. He doesn't have a right to appoint a successor after him. And after he dies, the Khilafat will go to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam is not alive. Khilafah will go to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam knew that Muawiyah will not honor any of these terms of the agreement, but he did not have a choice. He did not have a choice. There were two options: either be destroyed, or accept something, a better solution, and leave the battle for another day. And that's what Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam did. And this is not something new. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in Mecca did the same thing. And if the same situation Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam faced in Medina, the same situation that Imam Hassan alayhi salam faced in Kufa, that he was overpowered, the enemy overpowers him, and he faces certain military defeat. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would not have chosen to fight. He would have made a pact or made peace with his enemies, as he did many times. Okay, brother. Anything else?
Yes. Another question would be about, we have evidence that Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Medina spoke against Umar. He even asked him to get down of the pulpit of his grandfather. But do we have evidence? Yeah, that's a Sahih Hadith. But do we have evidence that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam spoke against Muawiyah and Yazid during the time in Medina?
Of course. Against Yazid, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he was alive, he died in year 49. He was killed in year 49 or year 50. So Yazid was not prominent. Yazid was not mentioned. And as long as Muawiyah was alive, Yazid was not active in politics. He would just engage in drinking wine and having a good time. So these ahadith are, and as a matter of fact, in my previous speech, not previous, but it was 7th of Muharram or something, I made a speech that Muawiyah in Urdu, Muawiyah ka Kufriya profile, the Kufr profile of Muawiyah. In that speech, I narrated from many sources that Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, how in the presence of Muawiyah and Amr ibn al-As and al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah, he narrated hadith from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that how the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on various occasions, he had done lan on Muawiyah and his father and Mughira ibn Shu'bah and also Amr ibn al-As. And plus what we face in Islam is, this is another chapter, in a very dark chapter in the history of Islam, that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was killed in year 49. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred in year 61. And the preceding era, before the demise of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, from year 40 onwards, Iraq was ruled by Ziyad ibn Abi, Ziyad ibn Sumayya. And after that, it was handed over to Ibn Marjana, Ubaydillah ibn Ziyad, and after that, Bani Marwan appointed Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. And not only in Iraq, but in all other areas also, the governors were very, very anti-Shia, and Shias were massacred. So any person who was suspected of having any sort of affiliation with Imam Hassan alayhi salam or Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were killed. So, and they were massacred. Not if they didn't wait for proof. It was not if there was proved those who were known, who were associated with Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were killed. No, people were even suspected of, they were killed, and people were crucified, and people were, their hands and feet were cut off on crucifix until they died. Their eyes were nails were pierced into their eyes, and their tongues were cut off. And this was consistent for many, many years and for decades. Any person who did not curse Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, if they did not curse, even if he was especially prominent scholars and narrators of hadith, they were lashed, and they were killed, or they were sent into exile from their cities. So that's a big factor, that even Umaris do not have many ahadith from Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There are not too many ahadith. So people did not dare quote Imam Hassan alayhi salam or Imam Hussein alayhi salam speaking against Muawiyah, because it was North Korea right now. Do you have any person in North Korea who dares to speak against King Jong-un? No. Because it's unimaginable. It's not possible. So there was a very dark age in Islamic era during the reign of Bani Umayyah and all these Islamic regions. So in that era, if narrators of that era are silent, and they all testify that they were forced not only to not mention Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in good terms, but they were forced to curse Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from minbar. And that's how they were given positions in the courts and given rewards by the kings and by governors, by showing animosity and opposition to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. So to expect to have myriads of ahadith from that era against Muawiyah and against Yazid from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam is preposterous. It just does not put into perspective what was going on in the Islamic world and what went on for those decades and many, many decades afterwards. Okay, brother.
Sorry.
One final question, and then I'll take another call, okay?
Yeah, no problem. One small thing was Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he was marching towards Kufa, was he marching as a spiritual imam, trying to guide the ummah, correct the religious belief? Because even if he marches towards Kufa, it was always perceived by Bani Umayyah that he is coming to fight us. It's like a rebel group coming towards us, even though whatever the intentions are. Now, even the Shias are saying that Imam Hussein alayhi salam took all his family to a battlefield. He wanted to fight Yazid. He wanted to exterminate him. So we have this scenario where our books indicate that Imam Hussein alayhi salam never intended to fight, but he went to Kufa to correct the Islamic beliefs. They wanted an imam to guide them. Was it spiritually they wanted an imam, or did they wanted an imam?
So Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam knew that Yazid wants to kill him, and Yazid wants to avenge the battle of Badr and the battle of Uhud. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam did not have any place in the world to go. He did not have any. He stayed in Medina. Same, what happened in Kufa and Karbala would have happened in Medina. Would have happened there too. It would have befallen him there. So he went to Mecca. So he went to Mecca. And in Mecca, he did not stay very long because he did not want the sanctity of Mecca to be violated, because Mecca is a city whereby warfare is forbidden. So the Imam Hussein alayhi salam at that time, and there are many hadiths of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that he said to his brothers, he said to his cousins, he said to Abdullah ibn Umar, that wherever I'll go, I'll be killed. Wherever I will go, I will be killed. Even if I enter the hole of an animal, they will take me out and they will kill me. So Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam from the beginning, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said that he will be killed. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam was facing an empire that was very vast. Its frontiers were from India all the way to Spain. Yazid's empire, northern Africa, all the way to modern day Turkey, and in the east, Sindh, India. All of this. So Imam Hussein goes where? He doesn't have anywhere else to go. And this while only people of Kufa, people of Iraq invite him. And they are consisting in invitation and sincere in their invitation. And they send thousands and thousands of letters. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam sends his cousin, Muslim ibn Aqil, a very trustworthy person, to verify and authenticate whether these invitations are sincere. And he goes there and verifies and confirms and sends back a letter that people have done pledge allegiance to me. And Kufa's conditions are very, very conducive to you coming here. And at that time, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, even Yazid had sent a number of assassins to Mecca and his soldiers to Mecca that during the rituals of Hajj, they have to assassinate Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam didn't have anywhere else to go. Now, why he brought his family with him? Because his family also did not have anywhere else to go. Because his family could be used against Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam as hostages. His sisters, his wives, his daughters, they could be used if he just came by himself and left them in Mecca or in Medina. They did not have anywhere else in the world to go. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam were very lonely. And this was all the Muslim world had turned against them and turned their back against the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Mecca and all the way, they told him that I'm going for martyrdom. The sermon that he delivered before his departure from Mecca towards Kufa is clear that he says, خُطَّ الْمَوْتُ عَلَى وُلْدِ آدَمْ كَمَا خَطِّ الْقَلَادَةِ عَلَى جِيدِ الْفَتَاةِ. That death for man is as beautiful as a beautiful necklace for a young woman. So Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam was going towards martyrdom, and he's time again, and he's told even Abdullah ibn Umar, and even people who did not have the ilm of imama, the knowledge of imama, they told him that he was going to be killed. Abdullah ibn Umar told him that he would be killed. Abdullah ibn Abbas cried when he would bid farewell to him and said, you will be killed. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam knew he would be killed, but he did not have anywhere else to go. And he decided, he attempted to make peace with Bani Umayyah, but Bani Umayyah were different. Yazid was different than Muawiyah. Muawiyah wanted to govern. Muawiyah wanted to rule. Muawiyah wanted his kingdom at any price. Whether he has to kill Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or have to live. Muawiyah wanted to rule. But Yazid wanted to avenge. Yazid wanted to kill Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam at any price. There was a big difference between the conditions that Imam Hassan alayhi salam faced and Imam Hussein alayhi salam was facing. So Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam is marching from Mecca towards Kufa, and he knows he's going towards martyrdom, and he knows his family would be taken captive after him. But there was no other solution at all. There was no other place he could go. There was no other people than people of Kufa who were promising him help and succor and support. And that was the only place that he could go, and he went towards Kufa. And of course, conditions in Kufa changed, as we all know, and what happened to Muslim ibn Aqil. And then on the way to Kufa, he was surrounded by the armies of Bani Umayyah, and he was massacred and he was killed.
So this Imam, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was saying, "Let me go to India or to Rome,"
I've not seen those hadith. I've not seen those hadith. I've seen them long time ago, but I've not seen them in Shia Maqatil. But Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam tried to make peace. He many a time. His sermons on the day of Ashura, his sermons before the day of Ashura, his conversations with Umar ibn Sa'ad, all of these are testament to this matter, that he did not want to have a battle fought. He did not want to have his family killed and his family taken captive. He wanted a solution, but as I mentioned before, what they were asking him was to submit. The only Ubaidillah ibn Marjan ibn Ziyad, he gave only one option for Imam Hussein alayhi salam: submit to the decision of Prince Ubaidillah ibn Ziyad. And that's what he called him, Prince Ubaidillah, Amir Ubaidillah ibn Ziyad. Submit to his decision. And he was not saying what his decision was. He was not saying what his
That's
decision
correct.
was. Imam Hussein alayhi salam had seen before that how they gave aman, they gave refuge, they pledged refuge to Muslim ibn Aqil, and they killed Muslim ibn Aqil. After they promised him that we are not going to kill you, you do not fight us, we'll give you protection. They killed him after that, and they renegated and they violated their own word and promise. So what they were saying, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew how Ubaydillah ibn Ziyad hated him. And you know that after Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed, Ubaydillah ibn Ziyad sent a letter to Umar ibn Sa'ad. And it's mentioned in all the books, Shia and non-Shia have narrated. It said that after he's killed, make sure that you trample his body under the hoofs of your horses. And he said that
That's
I
correct.
know that he's dead, and this is not going to affect him, but it will give pleasure to my heart. That if you trample Imam Hussein alayhi's body, that's Ubaydillah ibn Ziyad what he said. So Imam Hussein alayhi could, such a person who hates this much Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, hates this much, and you know that this also, even this action did not have any benefit for Bani Umayyah, for Yazid or Bani Umayyah, if they trampled the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As a matter of fact, it has political repercussions for them, and people would hate them for this. But still, they decided to do that. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam now has only one option: either he fights them and dies honorably, or he submits to a promise, which is not really a promise. He's saying, submit to my decision. What is your decision? Nobody knows. But this is a person who hates him, who wants to belittle him, who wants to insult him. So if Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam had made a peace on that term, that he submits to whatever decision they make about him, they sell him into slavery, they sell his daughters to slavery, they make him whatever dishonor they bring upon him. So he knew that, and it was not acceptable to him. So he chose the honorable way. He said, no, what you are offering is dhillah. What you are offering is dishonor. Hayhat minna dhillah. Dishonor we cannot accept. We cannot be dishonored and disrespected. We are going to die honorably. And that's what Imam Hussein alayhi salam did. Okay? May Allah bless you. Now let's take another call. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
May Allah bless you. Thank you.